Hello everyone and welcome back to DarkHorseFM, and in this video we're going to be looking at Daniel Farke's tactic with Leeds United in Football Manager 2024. We'll look at how the positional play inspired match engine can help us recreate the tactic and how the tactic plays out in game. We'll also look at Daniel Farke's philosophy, his core principles and his approach to football, and we'll go back to Mönchengladbach and go back to the Norwich City time, and at the end of this video we're going to find a way to combine all those tactical principles into one ultimate tactic and call that the Daniel Farke philosophy. Not a lot of people know this, but Daniel Farke had a humble playing career with 3 spells at SV Leipzig in the German lower divisions and a couple more spells playing for Bonner SC and SV Meppen. After his playing career at Leipzig, he took on a managerial role at the club before moving to Borussia Dortmund to manage the youth team in 2015. 2 years later, the Norwich job came knocking and Daniel Farke had a fantastic spell at Carrow Road, guiding the Canaries to an automatic promotion by winning the championship in 2019. He also had a brief spell at Krasnodar before joining Borussia Mönchengladbach in June 2022, and just over a year later he joined Leeds United in July 2023. Now Daniel Farke has been a firm believer in the 4-2-3-1 system, and while he has deployed it in the 3 teams that he managed as Borussia Mönchengladbach, Norwich City and at Leeds United currently, the 3 teams tend to play in a slightly different manner compared to how would expect them to in a consistent tactic. At Norwich City, Daniel Farke had Todd Cantwell on the left hand side, and he also had Emi Buendia playing in a 4-2-3-1 system, as Buendia was playing as the number 10 and then Teemu Pukki was playing as the central striker. The team was able to generate a lot of chances and score a lot of goals playing in that way. Norwich, it was a slow, patient, possession-based style of play, but not too passive in the sense that they're not trying to score goals. They were always trying to score goals, but it was not overly trying to force it. They were quite patient in possession of the ball, not very wasteful. They did try to walk the ball into the box as often as possible, and they were very comfortable playing out of defense. Wide players tend to move into the central areas and try to overload the middle, so Norwich tends to attack in a very narrow shape to kind of allow the wing backs that were going to get forward. Usually Max Aarons was the player that would try to get forward as often as possible, and while they did spend a lot of time having possession in their own territory, they like to obviously press the opposition as soon as they get the ball and try to transition it quickly and try to score goals when the opposition is out of shape. The wing backs on occasion would try to invert, so it's not something that was set in stone. It was something that they would do often in the game. If they were losing control in the center of midfield, they would try to force the wing backs or encourage the wing backs to try and cut into the midfield and try to support the central areas and overload or create a numerical superiority in that region. The dynamism of Daniel Farke's system starts to make more sense when you look at the way Mönchengladbach was actually set up. If you look at the defenders, they were capable of actually starting counter-attacks from deep in case the opposition was trying to press, and then they would find space over the opposition's defense. Mönchengladbach did have very fast players like Marcus Thuram and Alexander Player. They also had a powerful box-to-box midfielder in Manu Kone. Now Kone was the kind of player that would get up and down, but he often stays a lot closer to the central midfield of the field without dropping in too deep. So a role that kind of offers what the box-to-box midfielder offers, also being close to the opposition defense to try and protect the defense. And then beside him you have Julian Weigl, which tend to play as a creative force and also linking up with the ball-playing defender and the other central defender, kind of collecting the ball from the defense while they were playing out from the back. The goalkeeper, Jan Sommer, was very capable of playing out from the back as well, so sometimes he was going to create a back 3 with the goalkeeper or a back 3 with the deep-lying playmaker in Julian Weigl that was going to slot into the space between the 2 central defenders. The fullbacks at Mönchengladbach had a lot of freedom to roam, and just like Norwich, they had the attacking wide players sit really narrow and try to operate with the central attacking midfielder, that's the number 10 role, and more importantly Florian Neuhaus would play alongside Alexander Player. The striker's role is a very tricky one because it's different for Teemu Pukki at Norwich and it's different for Mönchengladbach's Alexander Player. Player is a lot faster than Pukki, but Pukki had the ability to actually go on to press the opposition's defense and also hold on to possession of the ball while he allowed the other players to run into attacking positions and they can also play through balls through them. That kind of looks like a pressing forward on support duty. Marcus Thuram was also capable of doing this, so you can actually have a deep line playmaker in here playing on attack duty so you can also get into the opposition's region. But the emphasis on pressing is what Teemu Pukki actually thrives on, so he had the ability to actually press opposition's defenders and always hassle them from the ball and try to help the team start the press from up front. It was relevant for Daniel Farke's team to actually try to win possession as early as possible when they lose it, because they will have numbers up front, and since even at Norwich City they had slow defenders, the team was very capable of playing with a high defensive line. At Borussia Mönchengladbach as well, the defenders were not so fast, so they did have a high defensive line, but that's where Jan Sommer's sweeper keeper ability was exceptionally good for them, and he was able to step out and try to cut off those counter-attacking balls that the opposition will play to take advantage of Mönchengladbach's space at the back. So to understand how the tactic plays out in Football Manager, we're going to look at the performance of the three teams that Daniel Farke managed. Each team had a different experience with the tactic as expected, being a Football Manager simulation. After looking at the performance of the teams and the stats, we're going to look at the breakdown of the combined ultimate Daniel Farke tactic much later in the video. We'll look at the cautious version that is suitable when you're playing against big teams or in situations when you're just trying to protect the lead. Also remember, this is not a plug and play overpowered tactic, it's a recreation of Daniel Farke's overall tactical philosophy with Norwich, Borussia Mönchengladbach and Leeds United. So we'll start with the German side Mönchengladbach, and what the data hub tells us, it says that they were formidable defensively but were only competent in attack. The competent aspect actually came when I made a slight tweak to the tactic for Mönchengladbach. It was actually poor. Their subpar results weren't exactly down to the tactic itself, but probably down to in-game management and the squad that they have. You can see here that they've only conceded 1 goal per game, but they've kept 8 clean sheets in total. Norwich and Leeds United had a vastly different set of results based on what Mönchengladbach already has. They lost 13 times in the league, and if you look at all the defeats that they had, they were just losing by 1 goal. And in the draws that they had, it kind of tallies with what we saw, that they were only conceding just the 1 goal. Most of their draws were just 1-1. They didn't concede any more than that. In contrast to Norwich City had incredible defensive record and they were just as good in attack. The team snuck into the promotion places despite having a bad start at the beginning of the season. Their last game of the season was a heavy victory over Birmingham City at the St Andrews. Josh Sargent scored 4 times in a 5-2 victory over Birmingham. Daniel Farke's current team boasts of the best performance in this tactic test, finishing second in the championship behind Leicester City with 102 points. Leeds United were the best scorers in the league, and you can see Norwich here in 3rd place. Leeds United bagged 103 goals and then Norwich City scored 93. Possession wise, Leeds were down in 7th, but they had 54% possession, and you can see Leicester actually dominated the entire division with 62%. And Daniel Farke's system being a possession based tactic that is not so reliant on holding on to the ball too long, it makes a lot of sense. Leeds United also had the most clean sheets with 21, and they had the 2nd most points per game with 2.22. In the assist column, Dan James and Jack Stacey from Norwich City actually went on to get good assists. James from Leeds had 17, Jack Stacey had 16 assists. When it comes to goals conceded, Leeds actually performed really well, and I think it's because they're one of the good teams as well in the division. So they had 0.85 goals conceded throughout the season. They were expected to concede just 1 goal, which is similar to what I saw with Norwich and Mönchengladbach. So you're not going to concede that many goals when you're playing with this tactic. But Leeds United did one better with 0.85. Overall, it's 2 goals per game, so not something over the top like I mentioned before. The tactic is not overly overpowered, something like that, scoring you 5 goals every game. That's not what it is. It's 2.24, and the summary tells us that we're incredibly good defensively and we're just as good in attack. We'll start with the Borussia Mönchengladbach version of the system. That's a tweak that I made for Borussia Mönchengladbach. The striker in Daniel Farke's system likes to hold on to possession of the ball and allow the players around him to try and get into attacking positions before releasing the ball to them. He's also capable of creating chances on his own. That's why I opted for a tweaked version for Mönchengladbach, having a deep line forward in here in Alessandro player. Yeah, I think that's the way you pronounce it. And most of the other roles kind of remain the same. The original ultimate version of the tactic has a pressing forward on support DT in that role. Now the pressing forward on support DT operates a lot like the deep line forward on, the deep line forward on attack or deep line forward on support. He has the ability to actually press the opposition defenders and try to hassle them, and also try to hold on to possession of the ball and allow the other players to get into those spaces. So it's almost acting like a deep line forward that is able to press. In goal, there is a super keeper on support DT that can actually help you build out from the back. In defense, in order to enable those defense splitting through balls, the ball playing defender is selected in this role, and then beside him you have a central defender on defend DT. Now the wing backs are supposed to be both on attack DT, but then I realized that the wing back on support DT on this other flank where there's an inverted winger on attack were actually quite weak on this left hand side. And even the way Norwich tend to play and the way Borussia Mönchengladbach also tend to play, the Daniel Farke system tends to favor going onto the left hand side, trying to attack from there. So I did go on to ask my wing back to play on support DT and then allow the advanced or the inverted winger that is playing in the advanced role, normally the Todd Cantwell role, to act as the player that is on attack. In the defensive midfield or central midfield as I like to call it, Oliver Skip would often play as a deep line playmaker on support duty when Daniel Farke was in charge, and even in the Mönchengladbach era this player was Julian Weigl. The box to box role is going to be taken by the segundo volante in this case, where Manu Koné was a player that was powering through the opposition's defenses, carrying the ball forward and then driving into the opposition territory. The pairing of a segundo volante and the deep line forward represents that quite well in this game. In the In the Buendia role, we do have an attacking midfielder on attack duty. The only instructions for this guy is to take more risks and then to close down more. I would have opted for the shadow striker on attack because the shadow striker traditionally likes to press. The Buendia role was also required to press the opposition a lot alongside the striker or pressing forward in the team with Pookie role. The wide players, the inside forward on the right hand side and then the inverted winger on the left hand side, both players have been asked to sit narrower, but then you notice that the inverted winger on attack duty has been asked to roam from position, so he's going to also try to get into the box as often as possible and also operate in the number 10 role in case the attacking midfielder or makeshift shadow striker tends to run into the box as well. He's going to operate in that number 10 role, so the roam from position is encouraging him to do just that. Now, I did forget to mention that the Segundo Volante has the take more risk instruction, get further forward and then tackle harder. I think that is the only other player that has the player instruction. Everybody else, the deep line playmaker, the defensive center back and then the ball playing defender, they don't have any instructions attached to them. It's a fairly simple tactic. The pressing forward on support as well doesn't have any instructions. Now, for how the team tends to play when they are out of possession, the high press is selected for this system and then there's a high defensive line. Although the players may be slow, the sweeper keeper on support duty is going to be the one that is responsible for stopping the long balls or counter attacks that the opposition is trying to hit. So the high defensive line stays. They're also triggering a lot the press, trying to stop the opposition at source, trying to win the ball back early and start a quick transition attack once again. They're stepping up more and trying to compress the field and trying to play in the opposition's territory as much as they can. In transition, the quick transition is evident in the counter press in the way Norwich or Mönchengladbach like to win possession of the ball. Counter pressing and counter work well together in this system, but you notice that the goalkeeper, I didn't force him to slow the pace down, but he's going to be distributing the ball to the centre back. Slowing the pace is going to come from how we operate in possession, so that you can see that the team is actually playing out of defense and the passing directness is much shorter and then there's a slightly higher tempo, so the team will try to build out from the back that way, picking the right pass but with the intent to move the ball forward and create chances and goal scoring opportunities. The attacking width for this system is fairly narrow. That is to encourage the inside forward and the inverted winger on the left and the right hand side to come into the space where the number 10 is supposed to be and allow the wing backs to get ahead and operate on the flanks. Crossing, I didn't even touch this, to be honest. They're walking the ball into the box, but I also have to mention for the Mönchengladbach tactic, the cautious version, the walk the ball into the box instruction isn't actually selected. But with caution, you can actually turn it on. I think I'm going to leave it on, to be honest, but it normally is not supposed to be there. But this is the cautious version. You can see that the pressing forward now is on support duty and then the two wing backs are also on support. Your deep line playmaker is on defend duty now and everybody else tends to keep their player roles. But in transition, the team is now only countering. They're not counter pressing and trying to win the ball back early. Now we're also using a mid block and a high defensive line, so we're kind of compressed into this middle third. They're still pressing offensively, trying to win the ball back early, but in that middle third. The step up more instruction, obviously you can actually disable this if you want, but it's trying to compress the field into that middle third and try to get as many players into this space as possible to try and press and win the ball back there. And in possession, they're playing fairly narrow. This time no longer short passing, is standard passing with a slightly higher tempo. Running a defense is still evident, and of course to walk the ball into the box, you can actually uncheck that if you want. This is useful if you're trying to just hold on to the league or you're playing against a bigger team and you're certain that you're not going to have possession of the ball. You can go out and set up like this. It's similar to the original system, it's just more compact. So you may want to try this tactic out for yourself. Following along with the video, you can actually recreate the tactic in case you're on console, but I'm going to attach a link in the description so you can download the tactic if you're on PC and then you can just plug it in. But I did warn you, it's not a plug and play tactic, so it may not work for your team. You just have to actually follow it the way it is and then have a hands-on approach and actually manage your team. And it's not perfect as we've seen, so let me know in the comment section what you think of Daniel Farke's tactic. Even with Leeds United currently, are there any tweaks that you would like to make to the tactic? What roles would you possibly use if you're trying to recreate Daniel Farke's system on Football Manager? I've gone on to make other recreations for tactic videos on Football Manager 2024. I've gone on to look at Marcelo Bielsa's system with Leeds United for FM24 and Girona system recently that they're using to actually dominate La Liga. You can check out those videos after this one. And that's it for this video. If you found it interesting, if you found it useful, do let me know in the comment section as well. And also remember to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed. If you enjoy Football Manager content like this, leave a like on it and I'll see you in the next video.